Welcome to the Psychology 101 podcast, based on the bachelor study psychology at Tilburg University in the Netherlands, presented to you by Lex Krishnadath, the podcast where you learn on the go. And today we're going to look in the book Personality Psychology, Domains of Knowledge about Human Nature. We are going to look into the first chapter, Introduction to Personality Psychology. We're going to talk about personality defined, 3 levels of personality analysis, a fissure in the field, and last, 6 domains of knowledge about human nature. So first question, how are the adjectives that we use to describe people called? Those are called trait descriptive adjectives. Please give me a definition of the word personality. Personality is the set of psychological traits and mechanisms within the individual that are organized and relatively enduring that influence his or her interaction with and adaptation to the physical and social environments. So we're going to break that big sentence down into a few little chunks that are easily comprehensible. So what are psychological traits? Psychological traits are characteristics that describe ways in which people are different from each other. And in some sense, traits describe the average tendencies of a person. Since on average, a high talkative person starts more conversations than a low talkative person. Why are psychological traits useful? Name three reasons. First, they help describe people and help understand the dimension of difference between people. Second, traits are useful because they help explain behavior. And third, traits are useful because they can help predict future behavior. Then on to the mechanisms. So what are psychological mechanisms? So psychological mechanisms are like traits, but they are more about the process of personality. And the 3 most essential ingredients of mechanisms are inputs, decision rules, and outputs. Then on to the individual. What does the within the individual mean? Within the individual means that personality is something a person carries with him or herself over time and from one situation to the next. In what way is personality organized? Personality is organized because the mechanism traits are linked to one another in a coherent fashion and are also relatively enduring over time. And what are influential forces of personality? What does it mean? It means that personality traits and mechanism can have an effect on people's lives. It is in this sense that personality traits are thought of as forces that influence how we think, act, and feel. So, what 3 things influence the person-environment interaction? Those include perceptions, selections, avocations, and manipulations. What does perception refer to? It refers to how we see or interpret an environment. What about selection? Selection describes the manner in which we choose situations to enter. The next, avocations. What are those? Avocations are the reactions we produce in others, often quite unintentionally. And last, manipulations. Manipulations are the ways in which we intentionally attempt to influence others. Then, Adaptation conveys the notion that the central feature of personality concerns adaptive functioning. The physical environment often poses challenges for people. Then there are three levels of personality analysis. Name all three. Like all others, the human nature level, like some others, level of individual and group differences, and like no others, the individual uniqueness level. So, talk about human nature in general. What does it mean? Human nature in general, the traits and mechanisms of personality that are typical of our own species and are possessed by everyone of nearly everyone. An example of individual and group differences is variation in need to belong, for example. Then you can bring that down to the individual uniqueness, Carl's unique way of expressing his anger, and an example of human nature is the need to belong. So, what about individual uniqueness? There are two ways in which we do research on this. Name both. Nomothetically, so nomothetic research, that is as individual instances of general characteristics that are distributed in the population, and ideographic, as single unique cases. And then 6 domains of knowledge about human nature. Name all 6. Personality is influenced by traits the person is born with or develops, so dispositional domain, by biological events, the biological domain, by conflicts within the person's own mind, intraphysic domain, so that were already 3. Fourth is by personal and private thoughts, feelings, desires, beliefs, and other subjective experience. By social, cultural, and gendered positions in the world, social and cultural domain. And last, by the adjustments that the person must make to the inevitable challenges of life, adjustments domain. So the dispositional domain deals centrally with the ways in which individuals differ from one another. Then, what does biological domain states? It states that humans are first and foremost collections of biological systems, and these systems provide the building blocks for behavior, thought, and emotion. Then the intraphysic domain deals with the mental mechanism of personality, many of which operate outside of conscious awareness. The cognitive experimental domain focuses on cognition and subjective experiences as conscious thought, feelings, beliefs, and desires about oneself and others. Social and cultural domain. Rather, personality affects and is affected by the social and cultural context. Then the last one, the adjustment domain. It refers to the fact that personality plays a key role in how we cope, adapt, and adjust to the ebb and flow of events in our day-to-day lives. Then the role of personality theory. Which 3 purposes in science fulfills a good theory? Provide a good guide for researchers, organizes known findings, and makes predictions. So standards for evaluating personality theories. There are 5. Name all 5. Comprehensiveness, the heuristic value, testability, parsimony, and compatibility and integration across domain and levels. Comprehensiveness explains most or all known facts. The heuristic value guides researchers to important new discoveries. Testability makes precise predictions that can be empirically tested. Parsimony contains few premises or assumptions. Compatibility and integration is consistent with what is known in other domains and can be coordinated with other branches of scientific knowledge. That was it for today. Thank you, and until the next chapter.